so I'm not going to pretend it's not there, but what happened to Harriet's face?
Well, I went to a taping of the Bolt Report, got a bit hot under the collar.
Okay, well, I've got something for you. It's this Globe Draft. It's brewed under license in Korea, guys.
Nice.
Anyway, what's been happening with you this week?
Well,
Don't pick at it.
So it's been a really big week for the Treasurer, Joe Hockey.
Earlier this week, he said he would be the face of a new parliamentary friendship group that is supporting Australia becoming a republic. Now, these groups don't really mean an awful lot. For instance, there's a group which is Friends of Meals on Wheels, but it's quite symbolic in that the Prime Minister is a really strong supporter of the constitutional monarchy. So that shows a pretty big divide between the Prime Minister and the Treasurer.
And Hockey's also come out this week to announce that he's going to deliver a personal tax cut at the next election. And this is pretty interesting because 2 years ago he was rabbiting on about us being in a budget emergency, and in those last 2 years the deficit's only grown. So even though it's really popular and everyone hates paying tax, so tax cuts are great, it's a little bit, I don't know, it's a big change for Joe Hockey, and I think it's a bit stupid, really.
But given it the last federal budget, really the most popular measure that they implemented were their small tax concessions and cuts. So I can see why they want to go down this route to gain some more votes at the next election.
so the big news this week has been the National Reform Summit. Can you talk a little bit about that?
Yeah, so we saw a whole lot of business leaders, union leaders, representatives of social services, as well as journos from the two national papers, the Australian and the Australian Financial Review. They all got together in Sydney for a big old chat about economic reform.
Now, the reason this came about was really a general frustration with Canberra and politicians in Canberra not being able to make any big economic changes. When we talk about economic changes, what we mean is things like tax, we're talking super, we're talking unemployment, stuff like that. And the reason that a lot of the time these changes don't get made or don't even get discussed is that unless it's a tax cut, they can be really hard to swallow for the public.
And one of the really prominent economists who was speaking at this summit, Martin Parkinson, he used to be a Treasury Secretary, has actually said that if we don't do something really soon, Australia could be headed for a serious economic downturn. So what that means is over the last 25 years, we've had growth in our economy. So that means more money coming in, it means more jobs and more employed people who are going out, spending their pay packet on Australian goods and services. So it's been really good. We've had a really good run. But he's saying that over the next 5 years, as all the money from the mining boom dries up, if we don't change anything, we might be headed for a situation where we don't have growth. So that means less money coming into the economy, means less jobs and less employed people who are going out and spending money. And that'll really hit young people the hardest, so young unskilled people like you and me.
Yeah, speak for yourself, mate.
Who won't be able to go out and find a job at the end of their degree.
So at the end of this summit, they handed over a series of suggestions to the Parliament. One thing to say about these suggestions was that they were really broad and really idealistic. So whether or not any of this will actually get through Parliament is really pretty speculative at the moment. And the other point to make is that none of these people are democratically elected. So in a way, they're having what could be a pretty big impact on Parliament, on the Parliament that we've elected, when we actually haven't elected them at all. So for a lot of people, that's going to be pretty challenging. So this week, our dear viewer Alicia has sent us a tweet asking, what is bracket creep?
So to understand bracket creep, you need to understand inflation. And inflation is like when your dad says, oh, back in my day, you could buy a paddle pop down at the corner store for 5 cents, and now it's $2.20. That's ridiculous. It's not ridiculous, it's inflation. And inflation is basically the general level of prices in the economy rising. And it happens everywhere, it's natural, healthy. And basically, the cost of the paddle pop hasn't gotten more expensive. It's the value of the dollar that's decreased.
So For most people, your wage is in line with the inflation rate. So as inflation goes up by say 2% a year, your wage should go up by about 2% a year as well. So that might mean that you're getting more money in your pocket each year, but it doesn't mean that you've got a pay rise. It just means that you've got the same amount of money to do the things you would have the previous year.
So our income tax system is based on dollar figures and brackets. So instead of earning 20 grand a year, for the taxman you earn between 18 and 37 grand. So if as inflation pushes the actual dollar value of your income up, say you earn 17 and you get pushed up to 19, you're going to end up paying more tax, but the actual real value of your income hasn't changed.
So there's a couple of different solutions to this that people have put forward. One, the Joe Hockey plan to give everybody a tax cut. The idea behind this is that it gives people an incentive to keep working and to keep earning money. For instance, if I had to work an extra 10 hours a week in order to earn an extra $2,000, I'd probably do that. However, if that meant that I was pushed up into a higher tax bracket and I only earned $500 instead of $2 grand, I probably wouldn't bother.
But there's another really, really simple solution to this, and that's just to increase the tax bracket in line with inflation each year. So each year they just go up by a little bit, and basically that delivers a really small tax cut to taxpayers every year. Lots of economists really like this because it's simple and it basically ends bracket creep forever. But for politicians, it's not so popular because it doesn't give them the chance to rush in like a knight in shining armour and defend the taxpayers from the evils of bracket creep. Thanks for watching Politics of the Belleville. I'm Harriet.
And I'm Brendan. Send us in your dumb questions. We're going to take a week off next week for mid-semester break, but if you want to come back and see more of Harriet's eye,
or Brendan's skivvy,
we'll be back in a fortnight. Cheers.
See ya.